going on, guys? Junior's Fishing Company with a deer hair jig today. Tungsten deer hair jig. This is just a clam, I believe. A clam tungsten jig. I really like their jigs. They have a ton of different colors. I'm not necessarily like super into tungsten. I am when I'm tying flies for the winter. But tungsten to me doesn't make a huge difference. It's a smaller profile, but really that it doesn't make a huge difference. This is an 1/8 ounce, and an 1/8 ounce jig head really is kind of a good size lead. I mean, when you get up to like 3/8, they get kind of ridiculously big. So maybe a heavier jig, I'll lean towards tungsten and things like that. But really, I don't care about a smaller 1/8 ounce jig head. This is obviously gold, so I'm going to do a white deer hair with some gold polar flash. I've got this tail. My brother actually shot this deer with his bow, and this thing is just paper thin. And he shot it in like September, and so usually the tails that him or my other brother or my dad give me from, I've just noticed when the weather's warm, they're still not super thick. The length of hair I don't think matters at all, but decent tail. But so I'm just gonna do super simple jig, 3 stacks of hair and some flash. So this is an 1/8 ounce, so I want it to be a little bit smaller. So this is gonna probably run around 4 inches. I really don't need this bait super long. When I'm throwing an 1/8 ounce, I'm either fishing shallow without a lot of wind. If it's a super calm morning and we're jigging for walleye and we're in 8 feet of water on an 8-foot flat or something like that, this is when I'll throw just a little 1/8 ounce little jig. And white and gold is just, I mean, it's just a classic color combo. I've got a ton of white jigs, but white is probably my, all white and all black. I usually just kind of stick to the basics. Every once in a while when they're biting anything, you can throw a pink. But really, color, out of size and color, I would rather pick the right size than, sometimes they want it all black, sometimes they want it all white. So just put it down, spin it around, and get it down there. This bait actually might run a little shy of 4. It might be a little bit under, but this deer hair is not long. And so I don't have, and I'm not gonna waste 6-inch deer hair on an 1/8 ounce jig. So I kind of take what that tail gave me. I hadn't used it yet, and it's been sitting there. So I'm gonna taper this out a little bit, and then after I get this down, I want to make sure I get all these. This tail just has a ton of those short little hairs, and you don't have to take them out. If you want to add some bulk, you can keep them in. I'm going to taper this just a little bit. I just want a tiny little tail on this, so I'm not going to taper it a ton, maybe just about right there. So I'm actually going to cut a decent amount of this one off. And I'll get that down. I'm just using 210. I think this is UTC. I go between UTC and Danville's on my heavier thread. I really don't prefer either one. For some reason, if I go to like 70 denier, I like UTC just simply because it says the color thread on the spool. Danville's doesn't. That's really the only reason I go with UTC when I'm tying small winter jigs and stuff like that. If you haven't checked out those small winter jigs, you can go to the juniors page and have at it. I've only been at this, I don't know, 8 months on the channel. Try to upload as much as I can. There shouldn't be any flare really in this hair. I can tell by just holding the tail that this hair is not going to have really any flare in it. And I usually just care about flare on my last bit by the head. So I actually took my final stack from a different tail that I knew would have some flare on it. I'm going to take a quick razor blade and I'm just going to trim off. The good thing about these metal gold jigs is you're not really going to chip the paint because it's just gold. So I'm going to come right back here, and I've just got, it's just gold polar flash. I've got quite a bit of it here. I'm not going to quite use all of this. You can always add more, measure twice, cut once kind of thing. I'll just taper this out, and this is a really short jig, and so I don't want to go really past my hair, but I think I'll have enough on this end to do 3 little stacks. So you don't need to grab a ton because you don't want to waste it. It's not crazy expensive, but it should last you a good while. So I'll get this spun around. I usually have synthetic scissors that I use instead of my good Dr. Slicks or Loon razor or whatever I end up buying. So I'll get this on top, and I'll for sure have enough on this end to put a little bit more if I want. Gold and white. A quick tie, you can pump these out. Once you kind of get the pattern down and stuff like that, you can make one of these. I'm a really slow tire just because when I'm at the bench I'm usually not in a rush, so I usually just take my time, but you don't want to see me spend 20 minutes on an 1/8 ounce jig, so get that right on this side. It'll be nice and gold. Make sure that I've got just a little bit left. Maybe I'll put that here. Lots of gold. And I'm actually going to put down a little bit of super glue just to help hold this polar flash where I want it. Try not to get too much glue on your fingers. And then I'm going to come up here. I'm going to come right up to the top of my jig, and that's where I'm going to put my last stack. So I took this from the very bottom of another tail that I thought was going to have some life in, or air. And I'm going to take out some of these really long. I'm going to try and get it about as even as I can. Make sure that all of the butts are lined up. And I'm going to put this in decently long just to cover up a little bit of that flash. Maybe about right there. And I'm not going to quite trim a ton off. I want a little bit left because I'm going to trim this with my razor blade. So I want to go a little bit past, make sure that my thread is corded up. And I'm going to come around twice, and I'm going to make sure that that thread is as close to the head as I can get it. Then I can just spin this around as evenly as I can get it. And that gold will show through. There should be some flare in this hair. So I want just a little bit of flare. So now I'm going to work my way up with tight wraps, trying to keep as much of that hair, the butts, by my head as I can. Any that fall back, it's fine. You're just going to have to trim it with your scissors. Nice and tight. because if I accidentally trim my thread, I won't have to worry about it. So I'm going to take my razor blade, I'm going to push it right against my thread to trim off all of this hair. Simple, white and gold, 1/8 ounce tungsten clam jig, quick tie, simple, but oftentimes it's those simple ones that you can throw out with confidence and you can just not worry about it. Click the like button, subscribe, check out the Juniors Fishing Company channel. I've been trying to post some community stuff. Hop on the community page, write a comment, something you want to see. Simple deer hair jig. We'll see you on the next one.